All right. We're going to be getting started with the adult lesson. Today we have Justin Solomon. He's going to be presenting on an experience he had this past summer. Before we get started with that, I do want to extend an open invitation to all the men that are here. Wednesday night we're going to be watching the Dodgers game in here with probably some good food. So it's a kind of a men's group outing. The game starts at 5, but come whenever you're able to. And we're going to be doing that in here, watching the game live, just to get some of the guys together. It's been a little while, so we want to get us back together again and have some fun. Could be the last game, could be a pivotal game. We'll see.
Well, thank you, Peter, for inviting me to give the adult lesson. Peter just asked me to talk a little bit about Project Mexico, which was a trip that we did over the summer with mostly college age, some high school youth, led by Peter and a couple others from St. Paul's. And he told me to talk about a little bit about my experiences and takeaways that I had from it. So I threw together a slideshow. I'm thinking we can go through some pictures and I'll just talk a little bit about what it meant to me. So Project Mexico, it's an organization down in Mexico that is based out of an orphanage, actually, San Inocente Orphanage. And this orphanage, obviously, it houses boys. It's a boys' orphanage. But they also do they have a house building ministry as well, which is kind of cool because that's something that we don't often get to experience here. And they staff it and they pretty much fully run this house building program. And they take volunteers every year from various churches or church groups that come down, and then we basically provide the manual labor, the muscle to build a lot of these houses, and they provide all of the brains and the scaffolding and designs and that kind of stuff. So it's a nice ministry. We're blessed to be able to work with them. And we actually went through a program called Left Hand Ministries here at St. Paul's, and that was the organization that paired with San Inocente Orphanage to be able to do this. So big shout out to them. It was great. So the San Inocente Orphanage is loosely based off the Orthodox Church. It's a mixture of Eastern and Oriental, but it is mostly Eastern churches or church people that go there, but they're obviously open to us as well, to the Orientals and the Coptic and all that. And it posed no issue. So there's a couple priests that rotate through there. I'll talk a little bit about them later. But the other cool part is you're actually sleeping in a tent on the campgrounds or on the orphanage grounds while you're there. So this is really a minimalist kind of service trip where you're working basically all day building houses, and then you're sleeping in tents and on pads or whatever air mattresses that you can provide for yourselves. So it's not glamorous by any means, but that was a lot of the beauty that I found in it. Is it's a little bit of a retreat away from what we normally experience here in our houses, comfortably living in a first world country. So the itinerary is pretty simple. It's a 5-day trip. 4 of those days you're doing various construction tasks. The first day is just an orientation. Each day is very distinct, and as I play this video, you'll probably get a better sense of the different levels of construction that we do or the different stages. But it's all, again, very well planned out by the group down there that builds these houses. They have a single design, and they basically just copy and paste it across all the builds that they do for various residents in Mexico. Obviously, this orphanage is located in Tijuana, or south of Tijuana in Rosarito. And it's also run by a bunch of interns that they have down there as well. They call them interns because they're mostly late high school and early college age people that volunteer for the entire summer, that learn how to build the design and basically become apprentices to the designers and the people that run the organization. And they're the ones that are physically on the build sites alongside us, showing us what to do, helping us build, and providing all of the materials. So this is a little video that one of the members of our group put together. It's about 3 minutes, and hopefully it gives you a little idea of what it was like to be there.
We are young, we run green.
All right. So that's a little bit more or less what the trip looks like. Kind of like, I guess, talking through the day-to-day. You could see there's a lot of pictures of the build site. So you're on the build site mostly from like 9 to 5. So it's, basically a full day's work of what a construction worker would go through. And it's, it's quite intense. There isn't a lot of infrastructure out there. You could kind of see in those pictures. It's very much a small, work site. It's some relatively poor citizen of Tijuana, right? They're just, for the most part, they're people that are too poor to afford proper housing, and they're living in kind of sheds or really shoddy conditions where it's, leaking when it rains and stuff like that. And, the organization finds these people, and then they're the ones that they have some kind of process where they choose who they want to build for. And then we're literally just going to their property and building under whatever conditions their property is in, which, for the most part is not good, right? So it's very minimal, and that's also partly by design as well. We actually hand mix the concrete, which is, somewhat controversial for some of the people there. But the idea behind that is they're trying to get us to do as much of the work as we can. And the intent is very much, manual labor and, pushing yourself. And they could get concrete mixers and make things a little bit easier. But the idea is like, no, you're gonna work for a little bit and not, use all the fanciest tools and make your lives easier. The goal is kind of to push yourself and to get a little bit uncomfortable. And it does a really good job of that for a couple reasons that I'll talk about in a little bit. So working 9 to 5, when you get back, it's kind of free time. You have to stay on the orphanage, but the orphanage is quite large. It's maybe like an acre or two in size. And there's, you could see the picture of the basketball court that was there. There's also a volleyball court that's there as well. So, you're kind of like interacting with a lot of the orphans that are on there. They're housing, I think, around 15 orphans or something like that. So when you get back in the evenings, for the most part, you're interacting with them, playing volleyball, basketball, whatever you have the energy left to do, essentially. And there's also a little nursery that they have on there as well that's actually new. But for the most part, they don't like they call it like the volunteers to interact with them, because they want the babies to be having a more consistent presence rather than people going in and out. But sometimes they do let us, see the babies and like bring them out, and that was kind of cute as well. The girls all loved that. The guys did too, obviously. It was the same for both. Oh yeah, and there is a lights out at 10 p.m. That for the most part gets followed, but it was a bunch of college-age people having a lot of fun. So there were, let's just say we had our fun, right? Like we worked hard, we play hard too. So a couple experiences that I want to reflect on. Kind of like I've been saying, it's the point of this trip is to be a little bit tough and to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. And as I was kind of like thinking about this and thinking that I'm giving this to the adult lesson, I realized that pretty much everything I was going to say is things that you get from raising a child. And I thought that was kind of funny, that raising a child and building a house were similar, and maybe even raising a child is harder. But I'll let you guys decide that. So first experience, like I mentioned, there's a bunch of interns that are in this program that are the ones leading it, right? They're the ones that are on the build site helping us build. One thing about college-aged people is they don't really know what they're doing most of the time. And when they're put in charge, sometimes things don't go as well as they potentially could go. Especially, if you happen to be the CEO of a construction company, for example, and you notice all these inefficiencies and things that they're doing wrong, it can be a little bit of a test in humility, right? And it's not to say that the interns don't do a good job. Like, they get it done. We didn't have any issues, right? But there's, a little bit of friction that can happen. And you're also dealing with a wide range of personalities, right? You get all kinds of people that sign up for this, right? It's basically giving away a summer to build houses in Mexico. The kind of people that sign up for that vary greatly from, rock stars, Christian-centric people that are, just trying to give back to the community, to, drifters that kind of just don't really know what to do, right? So you get the whole gauntlet. And that's part of the beauty of it, is you're learning, to, interact and get along with these people. And it's very much a test of patience and a test of humility, for some more than others. Obviously, it's easier, when you're also in college. It's harder for the adults, right? So there's a little bit of struggle for everyone there. Oh, yeah. And also the fact of having a bunch of like college-age people there for the whole summer, it's kind of funny to watch the interactions between them as well. My brother, who was on the trip last year or 2 years ago, he started calling it Love Island jokingly, because there was there were definitely like relationships that come out of the interns being there all summer. So it's kind of fun to watch. Right. Interns are one thing. Being led by incompetent bosses is never fun, but it's a good reminder to remember that you're there just to build and you're not there to criticize the organization. The people that you go with as well will test your patience, right? It's great to hang out with them. They're all your friends, right? But you discover that when you're in close quarters with people, for basically 5 days straight, living in tents and tired all the time in building, nerves get rubbed raw and small things start feeling like big things. And this is one of the things that I think parents understand quite well, which is not being able to escape, which is a theme of this trip as well. So I don't know, maybe it's a good experience for those that are considering parenthood as well. You're literally stuck. It's crazy. Like, you can't go anywhere. You're stuck on the orphanage, right? You're not going out anywhere. You're stuck in the tents where you're sleeping. You're stuck in a work site that's probably like 50 by 50, so you're stuck the whole time. You're surrounded by the same people. And I think that's an important thing to learn how to deal with, right? It's really easy, and again, I'm saying this with a grain of salt to the parents, right? Because I know it's not really easy. But for me, it's easy to find the free time and go spend my own time doing whatever I want to do, like watch a show, whatever. You don't really get to do that in this trip. You learn how to dedicate all of your time to service, right? And the time that's inconvenient, which is, I think, the most important part, right? You're dedicating time that is inconvenient for you. You would rather be, relaxing on a sofa or whatever for an hour after the show, after working the whole day, but instead you're there playing with the kids, playing with the orphans, washing the dishes. That was another thing too. In all of the meals, they very much have you participate, and you're cleaning your own dishes. There's shifts for all, the bathroom cleaning schedules. The whole point is that you're serving the entire time. And it's really important because it's not up to you, right? Service should not be up to us. Service should be something that we're asked to do and we do, not something that we choose when and how and why and where we do it. And that's the beauty of this, right? Obviously, you're agreeing to go on the trip in the first place, but they're gonna, you're gonna serve how you are needed to serve, not how you want to serve. So it's another good lesson in humility, right? And another thing, parents understand well, your energy is a gift. I realize how silly this is sounding as I'm saying it, but you don't have a lot of energy, right? Part of it's time, but part of it is also energy. You're spending a lot of energy at these work sites, from 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be. And by the time you get back, you need to, you need to make a very conscious decision about whether you're gonna put in the effort to, play with the orphans that are there, interact positively with the people around you, right? Your energy is extremely limited and extremely valuable everywhere. So making a conscious decision of how you want to spend your energy. Are you using it to be pleasant with the people around you and to, avoid conflicts and to, be the bigger person? Are you using the energy to form relationships with the kids there, the family that's there? Because you're building a house for the family, right? So the family can't move. They don't have a secondary location to go to. So the family is on the work site with you for the most part while you're doing all this building. And they almost always have kids too. So are you forming positive interactions as you're building with the kids, or are you just, a grumpy worker, right? That's all, it's very important to think about that. Okay. Another thing, quiet time. This goes along with the not being able to escape ever and being, forced into the service. They do give you the critical 30 minutes of quiet time in the morning before breakfast. And that quiet time is more valuable than gold. Like, I cannot stress to you how much you learn to appreciate the quiet time, right? Also, parents, I'm sure you're, maybe resonating with this too, but you have that 30 minutes of quiet time that is dedicated in the morning, and you need to use it, right? It's so tempting to be like, I can get another 30 minutes of sleep. Maybe I don't have to go to this, right? Maybe I can just, try to do quiet time later. That's not going to happen. Everyone knows that's not going to happen. But you try to avoid it, right? Or you don't prioritize it, and it will bite you every time. If you're not taking those, 30 minutes in the morning to just kind of refresh, read the Bible, meditate on something spiritual, you're not going to have the strength later in the day to be able to deal with all the crap that's going to come your way, right? And it is going to come, and you know that after day one, but yet sometimes you still don't even want to put in the quiet time. So I just learned it's critical to be taking a little bit of time in the morning to just be meditating on something spiritual and just thinking about everything that's going on, because that's going to be your best hedge against, any kind of annoyances you deal with in the future, and against, you behaving badly or having a miserable time. And I didn't get it perfect. No one got it perfect, but it's, the more you can do, the more you're rewarded. And God also really does speak to you in those times. When you carve out that time, like actually carve it out, because you're so tempted to get the extra sleep. You're exhausted, right? It's manual labor all day. It's not easy. But God really, he's going to send you something in that time that's going to benefit you at some point later down the day. Clergy was a mixed bag is what I wrote, but it was honestly quite nice. They had one priest that was really popular with the youth, a younger priest. He would always be, just around in the evenings after we got back, and we'd just, kind of talk with him, pick his brain. Sometimes they would give short sermons that were more structured, but oftentimes it was just, hanging out with the clergy, and that was really nice. It feels a little bit like St. Paul's Abbey, if anyone's ever been there. It's kind of like a built-in, St. Paul's Abbey clergy experience as well. And obviously these were Greek priests, right, Peter, for the most, Antiochian priests. I always forget. So they're not Coptic priests, but don't write that off. They still have incredibly valuable things to say, and I feel like a lot of the stuff he was saying was kind of spot on. The one priest that I was describing that was more popular with the youth, his whole thing was about the humility of the build, and most of what I'm saying now is coming directly from him, so I probably should have acknowledged that. But it was great to have him there to kind of guide the experience as you're going through it too. It was quite something. Yeah, this one was also just, I guess, more of a cultural note too that I found was I actually speak Spanish decently. I took it in high school. I've had a job that was, partly in Spanish as well. So I'm decently fluent in it, but, having a liturgy in Spanish and all these services in Spanish was really cool at first. I was like, whoa, look at all these new words and how they say everything and the tunes. But eventually it gets kind of old. And I kind of realized this was also my second trip. So there was a little bit of that also contributed to it as well. But I kind of realized the novelty is only skin deep, right? The Spanish is really cool as a cultural tourist. But if you're actually trying to be, spiritual and meditate and pray, it really doesn't behoove you to have something in, a different language, right? So to me, this was a kind of a hard reminder in what it's like as a foreigner into a Coptic church as well, right? It's you walk in and here's this ancient language that the pharaohs spoke, which is super cool, right? But make sure that that's not the hook, because if that's the hook, then it's going to die out pretty quickly, right? And I got to kind of experience that firsthand, which was not something I was born and raised Coptic, so I never had that experience of walking into a foreign church and trying to ingratiate into it. But it's not a good hook, right? It can, maybe that can be a nice thing in the beginning, but there has to be more, right? There has to be more than just, new language and some fancy cultural, tunes and, oh, look, they, do this instead of that, or they cross their arms as they take communion. It's all cool and it's a great tradition, but that's not spirituality. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah. And I think that idea kind of also expands to, it can expand to service as well, right? Service can also be one of those things that can be skin deep when it's just something that you're doing for novelty, which was also why I appreciated this trip, right? This was my second time around, so I knew what to expect. Some of the novelty wore off, but the real spiritual growth that you get from it is still there, even when it's not new. So when you're doing service as an activity, is what I had written there, I think. Let me see. Yeah, when you're using service as an activity or like as something to just kind of go out and do, right? Like that's just what you do. You serve when you're in the church. It's easy for it to feel exciting and novel at first, but that will fade. And when that fades, what are you left with, right? So just make sure that the hook is deeper than just novelty and just new things, right? Okay. So another thing too, obviously the whole point of, maybe not the whole point, but we build the houses for families, right? And those families are on the site, as I was saying, and you're getting to interact with them and you're seeing their kids and you're kind of like inserted into their world. And it's really cool and it's really touching. And that is, like a great hook and like a great lure to this. But sometimes the families are like appreciative, sometimes they're not. The first time that I went on this trip, the family was nice, they were cordial, we were playing with the kid, but the family wasn't as moved as the second time when I went on this trip. And I remember thinking the first time like, oh, I feel like if I was, getting a new house for free, I would be much more appreciative and, I'd be like doing all this stuff and whatever. And, that thought kind of crossed my mind. I didn't really, think too much of it, whatever, right? But that's not why we do it, right? So you may get that reaction that you're hoping for, you may not. And then to contrast it, this second time, this most recent time that I went, the family was absolutely outstanding. Like they had Jamaica for us every day. They actually cooked pozole for everyone on the work site, which is about 15 to 20 people. And that's an expensive meal, right? Pozole is like it's like a meat soup. So I don't know if it's oxtail or beef or what exactly the meat they used was, but they're getting meat, which is expensive for this poor family, and they're cooking like a meat stew essentially for 15 people, which is a lot, right? I mean, we're building for this family because they're poor, and we got to chat with the family a little bit, and it was a single mother that was supporting a kid. So she didn't have any secondary source of income, right? She was working 2 jobs already. So that's a huge hit to her budget, right? She's not like, oh, I guess I'll take the time to cook for them. It's like, no, this is her money and her livelihood that she's also sacrificing just to, show her appreciation towards us, right? And that was, obviously that's touching. How can you not be like, oh my goodness, that's amazing, right? But that's not why you do it. And the first time when the family was just, normal kind of showed me that if that's why you're there, it's not a good reason, right? And it's not a sustainable reason because you don't always get that reaction. So maybe you do, maybe you don't. But either way, just make sure that your head is screwed on straight before you go into it so you're not disappointed and that you're not serving for the wrong reasons. Okay. Yeah, and then being with the same group of people on the build sites, it's separated into 2 groups, right? We were like maybe 30 people total. They had us in 2 build sites, so you're with the same 15 people every single day for 4 days straight, building and tired. And you are in Satan's playground. You're literally his plaything, because any little annoyance, right, any little thing that you notice is just going to set you off, and it's going to ruin your day. So you need to make a very conscious effort to focus on the good things that you're seeing around you and not the bad things. Because there's plenty of bad things and plenty of annoyances. And if you decide to look at any of those, your day is just going to be ruined. And your day is already hard enough as it is, so you don't want to be tired, hungry, and pissed off. It's not a good combo. And again, I'm sure parents understand this very well, right? You will go crazy if you just focus on the negative. And it's just not sustainable for anyone. It's not enjoyable for anyone. But on the flip side, on the bright side, one person that keeps a positive attitude and, kind of becomes the positive social ringleader makes a huge difference in any of these work sites. Sometimes it's the interns. We had some interns that were like absolute rock stars when it came to the cultural, positive worksite energy thing. We had people in our groups that were obviously great at that as well. And it really just shows you the power to turn around the entire day or the entire trip just by keeping that positive attitude and focusing on the good things that are happening instead of the bad. I think it's easier to see it in that environment because it's a closed ecosystem, right? A lot of the times, I think in cities and jobs and the bigger social structures that we're in, we don't feel the effects or see the effects of the energy and the affection and the attention that we put out, right? You can only really see it when you're in a closed social environment, and whatever you put out is gonna remain within those 15 people. So you see the effects of it quite clearly, and you see that it's quite powerful, right? But when you curse someone off on the road that was cut you off or whatever, maybe you probably ruined that person's day. You've upset yourself, right? But you don't see the effect that you had on that person when they go home, right? So you don't realize the impact that you're having on other people when you're going about your day normally. But you really get to see it in this environment because it's such a closed social environment. It's a small social ecosystem. So that was really cool to see, and I think a powerful reminder because we probably know that, but it hits home in this kind of service trip. Yeah. Okay, I already talked about focusing on the good and the power that it can have. Also, feel free to interrupt me with questions. I'll also take questions at the end, or if you have any thoughts or anything, feel free to jump in. I'm almost done here. Okay, so overall takeaways from this trip. I've been talking a lot about the humility that you're forced to have, the limits that you get pushed to, and like the stress that you're putting on your psychological, social, spiritual self to try to deal with this, this kind of trip, a tougher type of trip. And that's, I think, obviously a primary benefit of a trip like this or any mission trip where you're pushing yourself. You don't find Christ and love and all these beautiful spiritual things and spiritual growth in easy times. You find them in hard times, right? So it's important to push yourself every so often to, to learn and to grow a little bit. And that's what this kind of trip can provide. I was feeling like I was stuck in like a bit of a rut before, where you're kind of just doing your thing, right? You're going to work, you're coming on Sundays, teaching Sunday school, life's pretty convenient. You've gotten into a rhythm, right? And you kind of feel like you're stagnating. Maybe you're not being challenged enough, right? You're doing service on your terms, not on, I'm going to say God's terms, but really whatever is needed of you, right? This is a great way to break that rut, right? If you're in kind of a slump, spiritual slump. So that's, I guess, takeaway number one, critical to push yourself every so often. And this probably sounds a little bit maybe cheesy, but definitely it gets older, or harder the older you get. Even just, for me personally, like from early college to late college and then graduated 1 year, like a 3-year span, I can already feel the difference that being in a consistent routine puts on you, right? It makes it that much harder to try to snap out of it and to change things up. That doesn't mean that it's any less valuable, though, or any less important. In fact, I think it's probably more important. Right. Finding ways to positively interact with the people around you, digging deep and using your energy to have positive change and positive social interactions and to be loving to everybody. Also critical and important to understand the impact that you actually do have, whether you realize it or not, on the people around you. And then taking advantage of clergy there. And I'll also throw in taking advantage of clergy in quiet time, right? Because that's how God is going to guide you to what he needs you to do, right? That's how he's going to talk to you while you're going through these times. Don't forget to also, lean on God while you're going through these kinds of when you're in this situation and you're, pushing yourself, right? You're not just going to grow from your own strength, right? You're going to grow from learning to accept God's grace more and leaning on him when you're in these when you're down like this and when it's a little bit tougher. Yeah, and I think God definitely rewards us the most, and he talks to us the most, and maybe not even he talks to us the most, but we hear him the best when we're in those situations and we're, like just tired beyond belief and stressed, and the people around us are getting on our nerves. That's when a verse from the Bible that you read at random or that you're assigned to read that day is really gonna stick and, cut right to your heart. I'll say too, like for focusing on the good, it feels like there's always one interaction that you have during a service trip, a tough service trip like this one, or also Kenya is another good example. There's always like one salient moment. For me, I was getting really annoyed at this one intern that was on my work site the entire time, right? She was just, one of these people that was clearly there because she enjoyed power. We all know the type, right? We've had bosses like this, and she's, I think she was like 19 or something, right? I'm 24, but that's enough to be like, are you kidding me? And she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's like, got energy, but not really contributing the most that she could be to the group. She's being a little bit annoying, like a little short with everyone. And I'm just like, it's probably day 2 or 3. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I turned to one of my buddies that's there, and I'm like, is this chick driving you crazy or what, right? He's like, honestly, I didn't even notice. Like, I do what I'm told, and I try not to think about it. And I was like, that was really wise. I should probably try to do that more, right? And could not be simpler, right? It's probably words that we've heard every time, but in that moment, that was exactly what I needed to hear, right? Like, you're miserable because you're choosing to be miserable. Choose to not be miserable. Choose to do what you're told, because that's why you're here. Don't forget that. You're not a CEO. You're a laborer. It's not your job to have opinions. So I think we can all benefit from something like that. Probably also in marriage. It seems like that's generally good words to live by. Okay. That's all I got for you guys. I have no idea if I ran over time. Peter's kind of looking at me.
Does anybody have any questions? The one thing I want to say is I've realized after his presentation that I'm Sherry's Project Mexico, so 17 years of service for her.
Justin, thank you for being so candid and transparent and open about your experience. I think it's so easy for us. I mean, people do this every day. Just trip to Mexico, you're there for 5 days building a house, but you've really dug into the layers of this kind of service, and you brought it from, I don't know, getting comfortable by being uncomfortable, to just being patient, by working well with people, having a positive attitude every day. All these things, like, I don't think everyone who does these service trips gets this much out of that, and I really appreciate that. We'll do things, and this makes me think, like, wow, I could learn. Like, we do Habitat for Humanity, which is they do very similar things, and you deal with people, like, you see people, it's kind of annoying, some people, and it is all walks of life. And they're very simple too. They don't use, sometimes they use power tools and all that. It's very similar, but I guess what I'm saying is you really got so much out of this experience, but I think most people, including myself, don't get a fraction out of these experiences. So thank you for sharing.
Well,
anybody else? Any other
I guess
comments?
if I could just respond really quickly.
Yes.
Thank you for saying that. I'm really glad Peter asked me to give this talk, because I probably wouldn't have dug into it as much as I did if I hadn't been asked to reflect on it and think about it. So thank you, Peter. I appreciate you asking me. I didn't realize how much I needed it as well. I also would not have told you that I felt like I got much out of it right after the trip. I guess it is worth, meditating on things too. That's probably half the value. So thank you, Peter.
Yeah. Anybody else with comments or questions? It's so the interesting thing about this was a trip that was done hopefully every other year, but one of the members of the group, actually one of the young men who went down on the trip this year, is trying to organize a trip for this coming summer, and it's open to college and above, both men and women who want to go on this trip. It's going to be last week of July, and we're actually going to have there's actually going to be a table at the church fair this year, just if you're interested in signing up or know somebody who'd want to sign up and do it. And there'll be opportunity to help fund the trip as well. So the participants who go down, they're responsible for with some help to provide the funds, and that helps the building materials while supporting the orphanage. It's a really beautiful experience, and someone like Justin, there are a lot of people who want to go down again and again because they have such a good experience there. And I've heard from some of the young men and women who have gone on the trip that it's a life-changing experience for them. And it's a life-changing experience because of some of the things that Justin touched on. It could be simply mixing concrete with a little concrete mixer, pouring it out, but you get down and you're laboring. You're getting concrete all over you. You get scars from mixing the concrete that you go home with and still have, right, Daniel? Yeah. So it's something that stays with you, and it's a memory that you have. And it's a reminder to us that service entails sacrifice. Service entails sacrifice. Service without sacrifice isn't really service. If I'm a billionaire and I give a couple $100,000 to a charity, that's nothing. I don't feel it. I don't know about it. I don't see it. It's like it was like a tip I gave at a restaurant, right? But if you give something from yourself and it hurts a little bit, or you feel the sacrifice of what you're doing, whether it's for some of these young men and women, the time they sacrificed going down there out of their summer, the sweat and aches that they got from building these homes, it's something that is more tangible and something that you remember. So it's just a reminder to us that when we serve, we should feel it, and we should give not out of our abundance, but out of our poverty. We give out of what we can't afford to give, right? And that's the type of service that Christ asks us to do. That's the type of service that our church teaches us to do. We have an amazing history of saints in our church who gave out of their poverty, and that's what makes sainthood. It's not somebody who orates or talks or whatever. That's great, but it's really the heart of service and the love of Christ that you're extending from one person to the next. And I think that's what a lot of the young men and women who go on this trip get out of this, is that they feel the service and they feel the love amongst each other, amongst the clergy that's there. By the way, Marchie did go down. We did have one of our clergy there who and maybe Justin was alluding to, the older folks felt it a little bit more than some of the younger folks, but there's opportunities for people to go down as chaperones this coming year, as well as participants. So if you're here and you're interested in going down as a chaperone, Lawrence Girgis is going to be here. He's the nice-jawed young man in the video. He'll be here at the table at the fair, and he'll be asking for both chaperones and college and up participants to go down. So that's about it. Thank you, Justin, for sharing this with us, and it was good.
Thank you, Peter. I'm not sure how Peter usually ends the adult lesson. I'm new here. Do you guys pray? Okay, let's stand up for prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Lord, thank you for bringing us all here today. Thank you for allowing us to hear about you and learn about you. Lord, help us to embrace you in our hearts and to embrace service into our hearts and to follow your will even when it's not convenient to us, and to learn how to do your will and to show your love to the people around us and hold them dear in our hearts. Through the prayers of St. Paul and all the saints, hear us when we say thankfully, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. Amen.